Planeswalkers used to be all-knowing and all-powerful beings that ruled the multiverse. Much like the creation myths in real life though, the Celestial lost their status and now Planeswalkers could just be a smidge more powerful than you or me. Sometimes they are even forgotten about in the story of Magic just after a few sets when they were introduced, which is almost definitely the case for Samut. Although we have had many more instances of Planeswalkers disappearing, the disappearance of Samut really struck me, because she had just discovered her powers, did one Planeswalk adventure, and then her story just stopped. It seemed like she is still fully bound to Amonkhet, and although that is true for many Planeswalkers, I think it is weird for this particular one to be so homebound. But let's look at why that is with Samut. As is the case with all deep dives, I got inspired to make this video because we found Samut in a War of the Spark unpacking. This version of her features a 4 mana Planeswalker, which gives your creatures haste and then can give another creature haste and +2/+1. Really focusing on the speed and aggressiveness of her personality. Then you also scry 1. For a very weird reason that we will get into in just a bit. This angry art is made by Alexi Bricelot and also features Samut's opponents, which are her ancestors and former friends and family, but mummified by a dragon god. We will get into that later too. In her next newest Planeswalker version, we see her in the Hour of Devastation, with ruin all around her. Her face is an emotional mess of anger and immense grief, but her anger rules her mind. Here she also costs 4 mana, but now she has a plus ability of giving a creature the potent double strike keyword. She can deal a divided amount of 2 damage to creatures or players, which stands for her dual wielded personal weapons. Her ultimate, which is unattainable, will let you put 2 Planeswalkers or creatures into the battlefield from your deck. Strong, but semi-impossible. This probably stands for her leadership abilities, which she has not really shown, but kinda did. Guess who made this art as well? Alexi Bricelot. You will not believe who created the first version of Samut's art. It's Alexi Bricelot, who stated in his Instagram account that wizards must like what I am doing with her. I think they do, and we do as well. The mechanics in this card feature an actual creature that has flash for her speed, double strike for her weapons, vigilance and haste again for speed, and other creatures have haste again for her speed. She can also untap other creatures, giving her a slight white aligned ability and making her colors Naya. Her flavor here says, "I will fight no more just for the honor of dying. The afterlife will have to wait." With that quote, that shows us the beginning of her struggle, let's look at her overall colors before we get into any backstory at all. Samut is a warrior from the weird plane of Amonkhet. She wields 2 weapons and can grant herself and others speed with her magic. Her story begins in the only known city of Amonkhet, Naktamun. Here the people believe in a god pharaoh that would once return to their world and that shaped it as it was. To honor this pharaoh, they fought in trials, trained their whole life and strived to become eternalized in honor by being killed. Samut believed in this as well and trained for the trials with her crop. She cared for her people, which is her white color, and fell in line because of it. Her red and green colors here mean her loyalty to her brethren, her fighting spirit, and her strength. In this card, the white actually also stands for her strong beliefs, because she is the only one that knows the truth about the god Nikobolas and his true intentions about using Amonkhet. But then, the hour of revelation came. Multiple gods were killed by Nikobolas and 3 other old gods. Samut lost her orderly side and her convictions were not as strange anymore, and her colors shifted back to only Gruul. As a rebel, as a fighter, and as a friend, she fought and protected even her own god Hazoret. When she was thanked by the jackal god, she simped so hard that her spark ignited. Magic's colors can be rather meaningless for a real character though, so it is more important to look at the gods that Samut is aligned with. Starting with the green aligned god Ronas. This god was actually inspired by Samut's ferocity. Ronas stands for fearlessness, willpower and self-reliance, while Samut likes to work together. She also wants to take on her own role. In the Trial of Strength, she single-handedly wrestled down a chimera, showing us her real strength. Ronas guides people by letting their instincts surface and their strengths pulse. Ronas was so inspired by Samut, in fact, that they rushed into battle soon after her. He rushed into battle, fought for his people, and died to one of the old gods, the Scorpion god. One of the pillars of these people's faith had been killed, and Samut took it upon herself to stand on his dead body and give this speech. If you believe the god Pharaoh tests you, charge with me to prove yourself. If you believe he betrayed us all, join with me to fight for tomorrow. The sight of this fallen belief in the old made the people throw up their hands and finally fight with her. This was after she left her white aligned identity behind. The white aligned god was also good-hearted and wanted to care for her people too. But white is not only care on this world of Amonkhet, it is mostly about cooperative action, protection, and mostly it is about purpose. This purpose is actually what befits Samut so much. Although purpose is a fickle thing, when it leads to the wrong end, the purpose of all people in Amonkhet was ultimately to become an army for an evil overlord. So as the revelation came of this purpose being useless, all beliefs were taken away. Oketra also got killed by the Scorpion god, and the people of Amonkhet were shook. Samut with these events lost her purpose too for a bit and got lost in her anger and love. Which brings us to the last god, which Samut belongs to the most. Hazrat is red aligned god of zeal, powerful emotions and intensity. She tested people to be intense enough in their drive towards becoming an eternal warrior for the dragon god. Samut is intense, yes, but she had doubt in her heart too because of her knowledge about the god Pharaoh being a trespasser. Samut learned about Hazrat's actual purpose, which was to represent compassion and inspiration. Still, in losing all that Samut believed in, she herself got lost in her intense emotions and lost her own compassion for a moment. To complete this arc, Samut should learn to live with compassion and inspiration again. But for now, last we saw of her was her fighting. Or, actually, she did make a step in attending our big friend's funeral, mourning the death of all of her friends and returning to protect her people in Amonkhet, where the real character development will begin, which we will never actually get to see, which is sadness reincarnated. I would like to start Samut's actual story with a few cards. She is seen complimenting Eternals on their skills in life as these people were her friends before. We also see her inspire her childhood friend Jeru when he says, "I was promised an afterlife, not this." Samut was right. The god Pharaoh lied. This happened when she saved Jeru from being struck by Hazrat, who then also still believed that killing the victors of the trials was the right thing to do. But even Samut's tackle would not have saved the pair, so Gideon jumped in front of it as well. This was his preparation for the crescendo of his own story. Gideon fought to protect his friends, even against the gods that he respected so much. It says a lot that Gideon, the orderly general and lover of his own narcissistic god, Heliod, stands against the god of ferocity herself. We also see that ferocity and conviction is not all that drove her. It is curiosity too. She says, "Don't you ever wonder what lies beyond the Hekma, which is the shield around Naktamun, beyond the reach of the gods, beyond the horns? which were the testament to Nicobolus's own horns, the narcissist. Yes, Samut is fiery. But she also wants to learn and is curious about the world, and wants to discover this world. Often, this sense of wonder is what leads people to a will to fight. So it's nice to see Samut having friends and having a world to explore as being her real motivators. Samut respects her friends. Even while they are attacking her, she fights them, but with pain in her heart. She has not forgotten her compassion yet. She shouts the name of the friends that she kills as she does so, in another act of defiance for never abandoning her real beliefs. Samut had to fight through a lot in order to keep those beliefs. After she fought for her friends, shouting the truth that she had now learned, she got locked up for saying these words and for standing against Hazaret. Hazaret almost remembered her own compassion here, but Bolas's influence was too great and Samut got locked up. Still, Samut kept fighting, and after she was released, she still believed in deciding her own fate. Showing us how Amonkhet was raising fighters, but sometimes someone would fight the system itself and win. I think it's a beautiful story that really deserves a lot more praise and attention. But let's look at her signature move from War of the Spark. This mechanic is exactly the same from our version from War of the Spark. +2 power, +1 toughness, haste and some scrying. The art features her running over a wall for a very long distance, which I do not believe is possible without some magic. The flavor explains the scrying portion of the mechanic with Samut's war was intensely personal. Every hour she faced enemies she once loved as friends and horrors she once revered as gods. Showing us that in this particular fight she was learning more about herself, because she knew at this point that her world was set up. She knew of Nicobolus and of Pontus' betrayal, of the death of all of her friends being useless and the lives all the same. Here we see her coming to terms with her own inner battle of fighting her friends, for the future of her world, for Hazaret and the survivors of Amonkhet. In the story of War of the Spark, we see Samut less than 10 times, in less than 20 sentences for the whole story. We get nothing new than what we see from the cards, other than that in the end, not all her friends got a proper burial and get burned to ashes by Jaya and Chandra. Her story obviously is not finished yet. She has no redemption, no thought of recollection, and we do not know if Amonkhet even has any survivors at this moment. So let us look at Samut when words about her had meaning, where Samut talks to her lifelong friend Jeru after dissenting her own gods. After breaking the laws, she secretly reunites with Jeru to try to talk him into joining her new purpose. Especially watch the difference between her ferocious side and her strong fighting spirit and sense of friendship and belonging. Jeru backed out of the embrace, holding Samut at arm's length. How is it you are free to summon me here? I heard they had you in a tight leash after your show of dissent. Samut scanned his eyes for judgment. For my heresy, you mean? For defying the law of the gods, he said. That's what I asked you here for, she said. I'm free now, Jeru. You can be free too. Free? From what? You want me to break the law as well? That stung. An arrest was tantamount to guilt in his eyes. Was he so ready to relinquish their friendship? The law has been corrupted, and so have the gods. Jeru was shaking his head. You impugn the god pharaoh himself. Samut clasped her hands together. But he's the very lie that has corrupted the world. There were old customs before the god pharaoh, before these trials. He made the world forget itself. He remade the world and remade the gods to suit his whims. Is that why you called me here? To spin stories at me? He shook his hands in frustration. I should be in training, Samut. The trial of Seal nears. Or have you forgotten what that means to an initiate? I have not forgotten what it means to you. She put a hand on his arm and squeezed. But I cannot call a lie a truth. And you shouldn't either. What are you saying? Don't go to the final trial. Samut. Don't throw yourself away. Don't offer up your death. Not just for sport. Sport? You call the most holy pinnacle of my life a He walked in an exasperated circle. That was wrong of her. Painfully wrong. I'm sorry. I have seen what the visitors don't want to see. I have seen how our society has been twisted. The skeleton of our world removed and replaced with something else. You think you will be proving yourself a worthy Jeru, but you'll just be destroying Jeru. He pointed a finger at her. You're telling me to destroy Jeru in another way instead, by throwing away everything I've worked for to get this far. You're telling me to dishonor myself and dishonor the gods. She was losing him. She didn't know what to say. Would the gods want you to die? Would Nacht want you to die? Samut said, and instantly she knew it was the exact wrong thing to say. Don't you bring his name into this, Jeru snapped. Nacht died unworthy, out there in the dunes, because of our stupidity, because of our foolish trespass. And now he roams the sands, biting the intestines out of desiccated corpses. I'm not making that mistake with my own life. Samut wanted to shout at him. You other dunce, you proud and simple fool. You'd rather die than show that you were tricked by a false pharaoh. But she tried to keep her voice even. She knew, if she yelled at him, she would just be another nameless dissenter, ranting in the street, and that she would lose him to his self-destructive beliefs. Jeru, my friend, she said. Nacht died to show us what it looks like when a life is cut short, to show us the ugly futility of death. No, Jeru said. He died for nothing. Something snapped in her. So will you! She roared at him. Her words rang in the firelit chamber, reverberating off the stone walls. Oof. Samut's life is a struggle, so we need someone to portray that struggle perfectly. How about Alexei Briclot, who is the master of angry women? I mean, look at Nahiri. We can see her magical hands weaving the stones around her, her pale white face and hair being the focus of the art, and showing us the largest teeth to sneer at you in your whole life. This is the anger of someone that will not relent until her goal is satisfied. This is a talent, to make us feel what a person like this. Even though we cannot lift whole buildings up into the air, this is her fighting Sorin, on Ravnica by the way. So this is just an age-old feud. But Samut has a real reason to be angry. She even, while striking, when you look deep into her eyes, we see that she has trouble with keeping her anger on her face. Not that she will relent, but we know, by truly seeing her emotions, that she does not want to strike her former friend. In this one face, there is the whole story of Samut, the smasher of tyrants. In the same way, it is sad to know that she has been reduced to just a smasher of tyrants. Because, as we can see, her story is so much more deeper and relevant. Let us look at the most striking resemblance in style for me. One that is not only about anger, but about the other side of Samut. Something that I would love to see from Samut in her development later. This is Aegis' angel, who just protects another creature when she enters. She does not have a story, but again, while looking at her, we can imagine what is going on. She has battered her eyes closed and stands with her weapons curved. This is the stance of someone who has not been able to protect everything. Someone who perhaps had to make a choice somewhere. The birds of peace fly away and a new day has begun. A day with probably another choice to make. I would love to see another piece of art, probably by Alexei again, where we see this exact next stage of emotional development for Samut too. I would love to end with what Hazrat said to Samut when Samut came to her patron god just after starting her rebellion. Hazrat should kill her for her disloyalty, but says, "It is never my wish to cage a warrior's heart. And I see that your heart yearns to fight, initiate Samut. Fight for the truth in your heart." Samut stopped being initiate when she renounced the pharaoh, but Hazrat still wishes for Samut to be one. The nurturer of hearts does listen to Samut's story of wishing to save her friend Jeru, but then strikes with the harsh truth. That Jeru fights for what he believes in, and that Samut should not cage his heart either. Samut almost touched Hazrat's heart by calling her by her real name, but Hazrat was right. If you truly believe in following your heart, you should not force another heart on that same path, even though it might be the right path. So that is Samut's struggle, which I hope to be somewhat resolved someday. Or perhaps that would be a question that is too high to grasp for. I would like to know what you think would be a proper answer or follow-up for Samut's story, and I would like to thank you for watching.